Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody. We are back with the Hateful Four. You had a nice little break last week with Fino leading the charge. He did a great job. But now Lucas and I are back. We can stir up some drama and problems because you guys were really nice. And I think everyone enjoyed listening to you guys for 2 hours. But now they can hate listening to us for, I don't know, an hour to 2 hours. Perfect. So I am in a new location, if you can't tell with my nice blank walls that I have behind me. So eventually I'll hopefully have something on them so you don't have to stare at this white forever. But we have a lot of cool stuff that's happening. Everyone is having their nationals. It's pretty funny. We're over here and I'm just like doing nothing related to the game because I was like moving and I was like dead sick for like a week getting back from Vegas. But everyone else is having like one of the most important tournaments of the year for them on the weekend. And then I just get to kind of like follow along and see what happened and watch all the games. So it's been pretty sweet. But Lucas, I know you are prepping for Singapore and you've also been following along. How's your week in the game been?
I haven't really been doing a whole lot of Flesh and Blood either. The week after Nats, I was obviously in New Orleans for the Pokemon NAIC. Obviously, we recorded while I was there, but I was there all week. And then when I got back, I was like, I got back on Monday and I was like, I don't want to do this stupid podcast. I just want to spend, I was like, I miss my girlfriend. I miss my dog. I miss my family. Like, I just want to spend all day doing nothing. So I took my time to do that. But now I'm back. And yeah, Singapore's in, I think, less than a month. So got to be locking in for that. That's been most of my focus. Just been trying to kind of figure out what the best decks are and go from there.
Yeah, and Dan, you're in the same boat as me where we're both not going to Singapore, which for me is the first time I'm not going to a tier 4 event. It just kind of doesn't line up with life right now. And I think same for you. But how have you been enjoying watching the national season play out so far?
Oh, NASA's been great. Yeah, I love having multiple streams a weekend to tune in and out of, depending on the matchups and how much time I got. No, I don't know. It's an exciting time. Enjoying it. I'm still playing my weekly armory at least, so I got to draft more high seas this Monday. This set's just incredible. I wish I could keep drafting it and do one more competitive event on this set, but sadly, yeah, not going to make Singapore.
Yep. I have not been to locals in 2 weeks. Like I feel like the biggest bum. Like I just got back from Vegas. I was completely dead with whatever this crazy like flu virus thing was that I had, and then I moved apartments. So I've been pretty busy. Noah, you are going to Singapore though.
Indeed.
You are probably not playing Florian, but maybe playing Florian.
Oh no, it's as close to 0%. Yeah,
but you can run good blues now.
What do you mean you don't want to be unfavored into like every deck?
Yeah, every playable deck I'm unfavored into. Yeah.
Hold on, you're also unplayable. You're also unfavored into some of the unplayable ones. To be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
It's a sad world. Yeah, there'll be a tournament where I don't sub Face Purg or Scowling Fleshbag. I feel like it's been a long time since I haven't had like a disruptive hat on the board, but
it's not too late.
Oh, it's too late
for Flash.
Actually, to be fair, there's one saving grace. There is a ban list next week, so
true.
If they like ban everything from every other good deck, then I think Florian will have a comeback. Just like every other deck just has to like get taken down a few notches.
Sure. I mean, we can just jump right into that before we talk about national stuff. Do we actually think they're making any changes with this ban list? Like,
well, they posted that cryptic suspense thing, which is coinciding with the day that the ban list will be released. So I'm thinking.
I thought the ban list was on the 30th.
The ban list,
but like time zones and stuff. It's like the 30th in one place and the 1st in another place. You know?
Yeah, how many days are in this month?
I think there's 30 in this month because the 6th month you got the old knuckle trick. You know
what is the suspense thing? We don't know anything about it, right?
This is a vague screenshot they posted on Facebook.
We know that it's probably on a card because it has like the sleuths have detected it's like a card background.
Mm-hmm. But it probably is like not something that actually matters for like the ban list though.
It just happens to coincide, and they usually do stuff like that where they'll like do some teasers on the ban list article.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get teasers, but I don't think the ban list will actually change anything for CC. I think maybe there was like a universe where they could have hit something from like Gravy Bones if he was like winning everything. But other than exactly that hero, because of the nature of like just like being two new classes and being like just a bunch of new mechanics, like unless that was way more broken than they anticipated, I feel like there's basically no reason for them to ban anything. Like the format is incredibly diverse and the games are pretty high quality. They're fun.
Is the format diverse?
If you look at like,
I feel like it's like one of the most focused metas we've had in a while. After
it's
this last
focused,
weekend.
but it's still open enough that you can play the decks.
It feels,
and we'll talk
That's
about
fair.
it when we get
Yeah,
to the meta
okay.
as well.
My bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it feels current. I guess we'll get to that later a little bit.
Yeah, I want to talk about the actual ban list, I guess, because we mentioned it. But
I
like,
think it would
do
be
you
cool.
actually think there's any changes?
No, there's
going on?
nothing to be
No.
banned.
I think
Maybe
it would be
Call to
super
the Grave.
cool. No, it'd be cool if they banned flick knives just out of nowhere.
That's not cool.
Wait, why would they do
They're
that?
They're so
totally
not.
changed.
You can't print an Ira Armory deck and then.
Well, it
Well,
has
they
new gloves.
clearly want it to be like Edge of Autumn style, which is, I think it's a
No.
sword, right? It's
Yeah,
not a dagger.
also, like the best card that we've seen from the only I mean, not the only good card, but I think like the most impressive card we've seen so far is the new arms. It's just like currently has no support, so like it currently doesn't look very good. But I think that's the kind of thing that you would like want to do if the new Ira cards are good. Having like this repeatable lunging press effect on your arms is pretty sweet. But
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be like the spiciest if they had to literally just ban one card. That would change the game the most. I think it would definitely be flick.
That's a terrible take.
It would be cool.
I hate it
I'm not
so
saying they
much.
should do it. I'm just saying like if you have to literally isolate one card,
Just
right, that
invalidate
actually
a couple
it's-
decks real quick.
it
just
feel-
force you to play the decks completely differently and probably much worse.
it feels like the most.
I mean, Mario's just like
no
actually
change-
unplayable if you do this.
Yeah, it feels like the most no changes of no changes ban list like of all time, right? Like there's no reason to hit anything. There's no like broken outlier cards that are just like clearly more powerful than everything else. Like there's no like CYB where like they might just ban it just because. Like there's basically
I mean,
nothing.
Scabskin Leathers is still legal. Let's not
Yeah,
forget.
yeah, but like there's nothing like even remotely relevant that people care about.
I
So
agree.
this is the ultimate no changes ban list.
You know
I
what
think
they
we
could
all
do?
kind of agree.
They could ban some Puffin and Marlin cards because then actually 0 people will throw their tournaments away playing those decks.
Oof.
Unlucky.
Okay,
Sorry.
let's actually talk about what happened in Nationals then, since we want to kind of talk about the meta. They just release basically a list of everything that won last week. The number one most winningest deck was Syndra. I think no surprise there. Then Slippy had 1 win, Marionette had 1 win, Azalea had 1 win, Dash.io had 1 win, Gravy Bones had 1 win, Prism had 1 win, and Verdance had 1 win. Currently, that's about like all the deep look I have into that week. Typically, there's like some people who put out like a big list of all the nationals, how many people were at them, and the complete breakdowns of all of them. I don't think we have one for those this year. I don't think anyone's done it yet. So if someone ends up doing that and you want to link it, below, that'd be great. Well, we can cover it next week. But I haven't seen anything like that. But so far, kind of open, but you have to remember some of these are really small events. But Syndra obviously running away with it, right? Four wins in this past week.
Yeah, it feels like Syndra is like the best deck, quote unquote, but it doesn't feel like it's like a tier above everybody else. It just feels like it's maybe like the best deck, but it definitely doesn't feel like we've had in the past where some of the aggro decks are like the top decks. Just like when you play against a tier below, it just feels like you're like not even playing a real game. But I don't know. At least personally, this meta feels super wide open, even though Syndra had 4 wins and nobody else had more than 1.
Well, I think that's why it's wide open, right? Like there are decks that have some game into Syndra that, obviously it's an aggro mask deck that has some ability to cheese out. So it has some power there, but there's like plenty of decks that like you're fine into Syndra, like Slippy, Prism, for example. These decks are fine into that, while also still being decent into the rest of the meta.
Yeah, it's also so we actually do have more data. Noah just sent it, but if you look at the number of top 8s as well, it's Verdance with 17 top 8s, Syndra with 13 top 8s, Gravy Bones with 9 top 8s, Prism with 7. And then Florian, Azalea, Kasai, Slippy, Dio, all with 4 or more, somewhere from 4 to 6. So maybe it is less diverse than I was kind of envisioning it. I think how I view this format is basically the amount of playable decks is quite diverse, although I think playing something outside of these, like, I don't know, maybe top like 8 or 9 heroes is probably just not actually playable.
Well, okay. First of all, I'm glad we found this because I was looking for this earlier today and I could not find this. But yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. So cool. Yeah, because number of top 8s is definitely a good metric. I mean, if we look at like last year's, which is on here, you can see like last year's was Zen at 80 top 8s, New at half as much at 46, and then like KO at 38, and then it kind of like starts going down from there. We're at least looking at like a 17, a 13, and a 9. So it goes like Verdance at 17, Syndra at 13, and then Gravy Bones at 9. So the representative is definitely more spread out, while the Syndra has taken way more wins. That doesn't always matter in like top 8.
Yeah,
I think
if
it's
you
like
look
more
at
things
this,
that get to top 8.
Verdance has 5 top 2 or 2, or excuse me, sorry, no, I read this wrong. Somebody else talk.
Yes.
Oh, we got the Lucas have to cut out moment.
No, Syndra has converted because it has had 5 top 2s in Syndra, and it has converted 4 of those times. I think most of the times it's because it's just sitting across from like a really good matchup.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's just feasting on Verdance.
This looks like
Gravy Bones, right?
I don't know. This looks like a good meta to me. It looks like Verdance is highly played and they are converting. Pretty well at 17. Syndra is showing up and then being able to win the event more often. Gravy is there still doing its thing, even with the amount of Syndra floating around. And then from that, it's just like a bunch of people tied with similar numbers, like Prism, Florian, Azalea, Kasai.
Yeah, it's an evolving meta, right? Like, it started with Verdance being proven as a good deck, and then it was all about Gravy, and then if you want to counter Gravy and beat Verdance, Syndra looks pretty good. That's where we currently are. I think it's going to keep changing.
Interestingly, Gravy and Syndra are also significantly more played than Verdance. If you look at the number of amount of people who actually register these heroes, there was 154 people played Syndra, 139 people played Gravy Bones, 161 people played Florian, but part of that's US now.
Yeah, Florian's bad.
And then you go down to Prism and Verdance. Prism at 121 and Verdance at 113. So Verdance also converting super well compared to all the other heroes.
Okay, I have a tangential comment. I'm sure y'all have opinions about this. So, like, if Syndra is one of the best decks, the last time this really happened was like Fi being Ninja Belittle guy, and then they hit Belittle, totally changed the identity of the deck. I was talking before about Flick Knives. Obviously, that's probably way too aggressive, but I think just having one of these like red line, click the button that says 3 or 4 go again, be like the best deck usually doesn't happen for that long. Either there's like control decks that rise up to counter it, or they do something on the ban list. So like, which do you think will be the solution here? Like, is there a control deck rising up to counter?
I'm just going to wait for Mastery Side Guardian, right?
Yeah, I think there's just, I think right now what it actually is that it's just a perfect storm for Syndra to like happen to kind of be good. I don't think it's like Fi during Uprising where it was just like clearly the premier aggro deck. I think Syndra is just like very simple. She has a good game plan into like one of the most popular decks being Gravy. I think just being like pretty good into Gravy and then just like happening to be good into like the Earth Heroes, which are also super highly played, and just no other good aggro decks means that she just kind of like happens to be strong right now because it's early format. But I would expect that.
But you say like no other good aggro decks, right?
Even
if there are other aggro decks, she's still like usually not bad into other aggro decks. Maybe Dio's an exception, but like the other aggressive deck you could say is like Acilio, maybe. And Syndra's like good into that.
All I'm saying is that I think that she's not strong because of her power level. Like I think that most of why she's winning so much is more due to meta position. Like I think she's we kind of mentioned it in our tier list video. Like I think she's like a B tier hero with an S tier matchup spread. So I think that currently she's going to do well, but as we see the meta evolve, as we see, like Dan said, as we see Mastery Pack Guardian come out, I think we're probably going to see Syndra shift around quite a bit into the meta. Because as we saw last format, like she's clearly just like a pretty strong deck, but if people have ways to counter her and like if the meta is such that she's not like a problem, she's just not going to win very many events. So I would say that
I just think
unless
most of the counters you have for Syndra are just doing things that are not really on good rate. Like you have to play these like niche cards that only line up with some of her turns. Like you're playing Calming Breeze type cards. It's like, oh, that's like a counter,
Mhm.
right? Or like you're using the shelter hand discard effect, where you're just like doing stuff that's like
I think
at. Go ahead.
to be fair, I think the best way to actually counter Syndra is probably just to play good value cards that rely on preying on Syndra's weaknesses, which are that she isn't very good at blocking and that she kind of needs to use her whole hand, which I think just means that the best ways to beat Syndra is just to present consistent on hits that either when they make your opponent block awkwardly or when they hit are just super strong value, which historically is like playing things like Guardian, or playing something like
I
Syndra,
think
obviously.
one of the
I'm
problems
so
with
confused.
with
Just play
Syndra
Assassin.
specifically.
Yeah, I think
Just play
Assassin is.
Assassin Arcano.
Yeah,
Do you really think Assassin like farms Syndra like that? Like Assassin's usually only taking like one card out of their hand.
I don't agree with that. Like a CNC
I mean-
strips too.
No, it only
Unless,
rips
like, your
one.
floor.
It puts their arsenal.
Sure.
I
So you're
I
ripping one
think
card a turn. That's usually winning against Syndra now.
to
And you're able to
answer
block
the
well.
point though, I don't think that like it's necessarily that Syndra is super easily counterable. I just don't think that she's where she is because of power level. So I think that I don't think we'll see any bans or anything anytime soon because I just don't think that Syndra will continue to be at the top if we like move through like the next few months. If that doesn't change, maybe we see a hit, but then what Dan said I think happens where we just like have Mastery Pack Guardian come out and then it's just like a whole new game after that.
It's like for sure not a belittle Phi situation at all. Like this is post belittle Phi versus Dromai. Like Syndra's good because Dromai's in the format. Like your Mask of Momentum triggers every turn.
It feels like 5 at one Worlds.
Yeah.
Like it's because like the meta broke in a way that made the deck viable. And
Yeah.
though
I do agree though that
sense,
if a red line
right?
deck is ever hyper consistent best deck in format, that's an issue. But I don't think we can like dog on Syndra for the last 2 months and then all of a sudden she has a matchup against the most popular deck, so we start dooming. I don't think that's really fair.
Well,
Well, not even just like the
it's
one.
no, it's not just the most popular.
Not even
It's
just the
because
most
the new. It's because of the new dagger. Like I think people are really
Mhm.
underestimating the fact that you have they actually got the new dagger, which flipped the Florian and Verdance matchup a lot more into
Yeah.
And you
Syndra's favor,
also-
which was like
yeah.
a big deal.
And the slow
Yeah.
matchups are already pretty good.
Literally any deck doing Arcane, you just like gain 5 life when the match starts, and you're supposed to be a deck where like
We can ban the
margins are
daggers.
kind of small.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they should have just never printed that dagger. It's like a cool design space of like a spell void dagger. Like sounds good in theory, but I think it's just way too good.
Yeah, I think in practice the fact that she gets it back every turn is too strong. Like they basically printed like a legendary equipment in the set for Syndra. That's like better than all of her current legendary equipment.
Also, a lot of the Syndra lists have been playing some amount of blues too. And in those matchups, it doesn't like break when you swing it. So sometimes if you ended your chain with go again, you're just like,
Mhm.
here's like another free damage. Like
Mhm.
it actually just like has no real drawback.
I think the meta adapts.
I think the meta adapts as well. I think that she will not continue to be well, to be fair, I don't think she's even that strong right now. I think she'll probably keep being where she is, where she probably does better than the other aggro decks, but not so much so that they don't exist. I think she'll just keep being good. She'll be a part of the meta, but I don't think we're in a Syndra meta. I think if anything, we might be in a Verdance meta. But
here we go.
we'll see. We'll see how that continues to shape up.
I think we're technically in a Gravy Bones meta, and then the things that are doing well are the stuff that's
Well, we
beating
have to
Gravy
see-
Yeah,
Bones.
he's
I think-
entirely warping the meta.
I
Like,
think
I'm
I think
pretty
From the past
he's
weekend.
technically warping the meta right now, but I think
He's 100%.
I think
warping
as
the
we
meta right
as
now.
we move forward, I think is when we might see Verdance continue to kind of uptick. But we'll see. I that's just based off of these conversion numbers, which is only so much data and it's early on and people haven't adapted this.
Do you think Verdance is maybe like hard to play?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think so. I think Verdance has a lot of things that you can do wrong that just like almost disqualify you from having a chance in some matchups, which is like quite problematic. And then also I think just like she has a lot of big macro decisions that are just really hard to make and are really punishing. Like, for example, you just like draw a hand where you have like felling, blue card, plow, and like some other random card. Just like playing those kinds of turns properly and just making sure that you like actually get all the value that you can is very important, and you can definitely mess that up pretty easily, I think, with Verdance. Also, I think Verdance is just a hero where like you want to like tailor your deck quite specifically to your local metagame. And in Flesh and Blood, time and time again, we've seen that people don't like actually tailor their decks to very much at all. They just kind of throw stuff that they like in the deck and ship it off. And I think one of her biggest strengths is that you can like legitimately overhaul the deck depending on what you want to beat, which a lot of people don't really do.
Yeah, I think. Do you think Azalea's gonna rotate out?
Does she only need one? She only needs one more win.
No, she's like
she needs a lot.
4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You barely got a sprinkle of points from Iceland, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's like 3 wins, right?
Depending on the size. Depends on the size because it scales from there.
Are there any callings?
Nope.
I think Azalea is looking like she'll make it, but
yeah,
that'd be so annoying.
I don't really think it matters that much, but
it's just like annoying. I don't want to have to face Azalea. Who's having fun there?
I think Azalea is definitely in an okay spot. I mean, the Syndra match isn't great, but it's playable. It's like that's every match, right? It's like every match is playable, just depending on like what half of the
she's just Zen
deck you draw.
She's just Zen, like whatever. You're probably slightly favored into a bunch of stuff, but you're just like flipping coins.
Yeah, except
it's not like Zen at all. Zen was like you're slightly favored, but you have to work super hard to realize that.
And you have to know all your matchups perfectly, and like Azalea just isn't that.
Sure. I mean, in terms of just like win percentage, like every matchup is like, yeah, you're probably slightly ahead, but it's ultimately you just did like me from the perspective of me playing Zen at the end. It just felt like I was just like doing the thing and then flipping coins, but maybe that was just because I was.
I want to bring up Gravy Bones. Do we think that Gravy Bones is overrated? Rated where it's supposed to be at? People can't figure it out. What do we think's going on with
what is the rating as of now?
Yeah, I think that's
the best deck in the game. Yeah,
that is the best deck in the game. Oh, it's definitely the best deck in the game. It has like the most powerful plays available to it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's almost no question.
I think it's. I don't know. I'm a little bit. I think that a lot of the times when we have new decks come out in Flesh and Blood, people are really quick to assume that we're going to figure out a deck that does everything that we think the deck is supposed to do. And I'm not sure if Gravy actually beats out his limitations and the things that balance him. At least in my experience playing against him, it does feel like he has super legitimate issues. Like there's a lot of spots where if you just go at his face, he just like dies in 3 turns. Like if you just decide to do that, he just like has a couple clunky hands and then he's dead. He also has a lot of turns where you just like decide he's allowed to put allies out now and he doesn't capitalize on them properly. So I think that he has a lot of weaknesses. And since he's a hero that's like broken with problems to solve instead of being like not that strong, but like as you figure it out, you know, it gets better and better. I feel like Gravy is this hero where we know what the ceiling looks like. We're just trying to iron out the kinks. I think we don't actually have the ability to iron out the kinks as well as people think we're going to.
So I think say he's overrated.
I think well, I don't know how rated he is. I think he's very strong.
If you assume the rating is best deck, you're saying he's not the best
I think
deck.
It's probably overrated as the best deck. I think he is probably one of the best decks and he has a lot of strong matchups, but I think Necromancer is not Illusionist. And I think people kind of treat Necromancer as Illusionist. It just doesn't feel the same. Like it just doesn't feel like if I'm down 20 life and they have not a million guys, right? Like let's say I'm down 10 life and they have like 3 guys in play. A lot of times against Illusionists, you're just dead. Like you just can't, like they're just going to snowball and you die. But against Necro, it feels like you have more room to play at basically all points of the game, which also makes sense because they have more broken plays than Illusionists. Like Illusionists can't just like 3-card 25 you, and sometimes Gravy can just do that, with the exception of Prism, of course. But I do think it's quite strong, but I think it's a lot more of just like a good numbers, get good value. Games are going to break based on draw sequence and blowouts and things like that. A lot more than kind of how people are treating him, which is as this like 80-20 every matchup, like illusionist, like you just steamroll all these bad decks and all of the good decks are like fine and you're just flipping coins. Like I think he's just a relatively methodical, powerful mid-rangey deck that's better than most things in the game.
Okay, so I'm going to go the complete opposite of you then.
I know.
I think Gravy is easily the best deck in the game that no one knows how to play or build currently. I think the deck is incredibly deep, incredibly hard to build properly, incredibly reactive to whatever you're trying to counter as the deck is supposed to be played. I think most people are on like level 1, which is like make the deck function properly, and then like learn how to play it into matchups. And it's like level 3 is like this deck is completely tuned to like how you actually want to play against Syndra. I think Syndra is a winnable matchup. I think it's also very hard, but I think the deck requires to look very differently in order to actually play into Syndra. I'm not saying that's a solvable matchup, but I am saying it's like really sometimes not that bad.
I have like no Gravy experience and I'm like 3-0 and I just like kind of steamroll every time. So it's definitely winnable.
I just think like when I look at this hero, I look at the amount of cards that I can cycle through on a given turn. I look at the different play lines that I have. I look at a toolbox functionality of the deck. I look at a way I don't think anyone's running the correct number or correct red cards. I'm not saying I have these answers. I'm saying when I look at it, I can make arguments for like a whole wide spread of different textures of red cards that could be in the deck that makes sense on what I'm trying to accomplish. And I don't think anyone has the answers to this, but the fact that like you can dig so far into your deck to try and make game plans and to cycle cards is just like different levels of skill that I don't think we've accomplished yet. Not to mention that like just dumping dudes into the graveyard to set up certain like dude ball turns is like a thing that you can accomplish. And like none of these things are like really fleshed out into a way that matter. And I think this is the prize pinata of the entire game right now, where everyone is taking swings at this thing, trying to crack it, because if they crack it and you get insanely good at the deck, it feels like a deck that you could just hold on to for the next year and just be like, I'm good to go in every meta and anything that happens, and I can like win events through skill. That's what it feels like when you're
starting to make that into a YouTube short and edit a pinata and Cody going like this, and then the perfect gravy deck list falling out of it.
Yeah.
And it's got like yellow, golden,
but it's like
yellow sloops.
Sure. But it just feels adaptable.
Year of card, bro. Yellow Tipple is goated and yellow sloop is in my trash can.
No, Cody,
it just feels like it's adaptable to every meta looking for. Like when I look at every card that can come out, like sets can come out, I'm like, this is adjustable. Like it feels like if I can become an expert at this, I'm like, you're instantly great in every tournament you go to.
I think Gravy very well might be that strong. My experience with the Flesh and Blood player base is that
be careful, dude.
That's why it's the prize. That's why it's the prize piata, because like everyone is trying to hit the thing that like no one is able to accomplish.
Yeah, I just don't think that anyone's gonna like make it as broken as people think. Like I think what people envision is that in all of these matchups, it's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna put these 3 allies in my grave, and then I'm gonna draw a hand that plays them all on the same turn, and then I'm gonna play them, and then my opponent's not gonna kill them, and then I'm gonna do this thing. But I think that in practice, it's just like, you're not Dromai. Like, you can't just, like, pitch stack turns that just do... Like, you can't just go, like, Chromai, Mira Guy. You're only going to clear 2 of these. I'm going to 30 you. Like, I think with Gravy, the fact that you kind of just need a lot more setup means that it's always going to be exploitable. And so I do think that Gravy is one of the decks that you can maximize through that kind of, like, just go in the lab and come out with a crazy deck. I think that's possible, but I think it's never going to be as deterministic as people seem to think that the hero is. I think that people think that all of the card filtering means that you just get to kind of do whatever you want, but in practice, it doesn't actually play out that way. Like the reason that you have so much card filtering is because all your cards suck. Like all your cards are either blues that don't do anything or yellows.
That's just not true. A lot of this is like old economy. Like,
well, no, but you look at the Gravy like card pool. A bunch of the cards are just these high synergy pieces that do a bunch of broken stuff. But that's why you're allowed to filter all these cards. You have all these yellow no block allies. You're playing a bunch of golden.
That's currently the thought of why you get the filter all the cards. But if you can just put good cards in the deck and make it in a way where that filtering isn't the requirement to make the deck function. Well, filtering is the bonus on top of having good cards in your deck. Like,
sure, I don't
changes
disagree.
How the deck functions.
I don't disagree. I think that the way it seems right now is that the number of engine pieces that the deck currently seems to require, or definitely that people are playing right now, is not that impressive. Like when people are playing, like, you know, you have like Saltwater Swell and Tipple, and I think Portside Exchange is maybe a bad example, but all these cards that are just kind of like medium whatever cards. They're good because they're blue and maybe they block and they filter. But I think it's a lot less impressive than people actually think it is. I think it's just that you're doing a bunch of big flashy stuff, and then at the end you get a reward, and it is a good reward. But I
don't know. I don't know if I've ever won the game on turn 1 as often as I do with Gravy. Like legitimately, the amount of times that you I just don't think you just win the game on turn 1.
It happens a lot. I do think the hero is very strong. I just don't think that I think it's overrated. I just think it has a bunch of problems.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it's very easy to target. And I also think that the hero is not nearly as consistent as people think it is. I think it's just
most illusionists aren't consistent. It's just they all lie to themselves.
I think illusionist is like the least consistent class like in the games. Illusionist is super inconsistent. I think Gravy,
that's like the same thing that's always been like Prism players, Enigma players. They've all convinced themselves that they win every matchup like 90% of the time based on skill, but they're playing like a super.
I think like, Dromai
risky deck.
I think Dromai was pretty consistent, but that was its own thing. I think Gravy is closer to Dromai than it is to the other like board swarm decks, where it is quite flexible, but I still think it's inconsistent because I just don't think that you have the ability to consistently deal with your weaknesses. I think that's the biggest problem, is that just naturally the play pattern of put guys in play as a setup turn is just super easy to exploit, because all your opponent has to do is just like kill the guys in an efficient way to kind of blow you out. And then the play pattern of play guy, get value out of guy is also obviously exploitable by heroes that are just able to deal with the numbers in profitable ways. Also, if anybody can ever build decks that are able to disrupt you meaningfully, you're quite weak into that. You have terrible armor. You don't block for shit. You're quite weak against disruption in some spots, not in all spots. Like a lot of the time you are, just since you can operate on any hand size, some disruption is weak against you. But there is a bunch of stuff that's really hard to deal with. Like if you get blanched, what do you do? Like you can't really block it super well. You can't really play through it super well. And if you take it, you know, you're just taking a bunch of damage. You're kind of snowballing. I'm not saying that there aren't solutions for all of these problems, but I think it's just like, it's a hero that has a lot going for it and a lot going against it. So far to me, it feels balanced enough where like it does just have enough weaknesses where even when my Gravy opponent does broken shit, I'm like, okay, whatever, you did broken shit, I'll just go face and you'll just die with a Humperdinck and 2 chums in play.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. You have Chum, right? Chum is basically the only answer that, I guess, Sawbones to some extent as well, that like dictates your opponent change their lines of play to do what you want them to do. But outside of those allies, your opponent is the one who's like really making the choice, right, of what they want to be doing.
And even those two, some hero like Verdance, for example, can just ignore those. Like there are some games with Verdance where you're like, oh, you're at 20 Gravy. Oh, you just put out like a Humperdinck, a Sawbones, and a Chum. I'm just gonna.
I think you're taking this too much from the Verdance perspective. Like all of these issues you're saying Gravy Bones has, that's only against like very specific heroes.
Well, I agree. Well, some heroes, like something like obviously all of the wizards are able to do it. Basically, any ninja is going to be capable of having these like big explosive turns. And so I agree that there are definitely heroes that are better against Gravy. That's just part of my argument, though, is that I think that there are heroes and strategies that are just able to deal with Gravy pretty cleanly from a macro perspective, that I think he's just a balanced deck with bad matchups into things like Wizard and Ninja, even if they are like reasonable at high level. And then I think also he's not as deterministic into the other things as people think. Like you don't just I think beat decks every time.
I think you're overlooking the fact that like you can still win the Verdance and Syndra matchup.
Oh, you definitely can. Absolutely.
And so like those are like the bad matches. And then there's a whole bunch of decks that are just like kind of a dog into the deck.
I think there's a lot of decks that are dog, but I just don't think there are very many decks that are like dead in the water. And if we do,
you don't have to be.
Even if they are, then it's just like Enigma, but it's just not as good as Enigma.
It's very different. Like we talked about it last week. I think it's the allies are so ridiculous with their abilities in certain matchups. Like they literally just say like you win the game against this hero.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
There are
like you have so many of them that like you always have a matchup where you have that effect.
I think maybe I'm just looking at it too much from a high level perspective. But to me, it's like the question that we're talking about, or what we're discussing is how strong is Gravy Bones, and I think the answer is just he's similarly to all the other good decks. I think he's very strong into a bunch of heroes into the game. Like some heroes just can't really compete with him. And then he's fine in the meta we have. I think he's just like Syndra or Verdance or Azalea. We're like, yeah, he's a tier above most of the heroes in the game, and he's in the same tier as most of the top decks. That's where he is. He's just like he's an A tier deck. I don't think he's or he's like bottom S tier because it's a good meta for him or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't think he's.
I will agree that that's probably where he's at right now. But when I look at where he could be, and I look at the potential, it just seems like
I think
this is easily probably one of the best decks ever made.
I think we could.
I think Call to the Grave for sure is getting banned.
Yeah, I think we could get to that point. I think we also could see him be one of the heroes that just LLs over the course of a year because he's pretty good and
he can't.
Why?
He literally can't because they changed how LL works. Like if you want to invest in something that is potentially going to pay dividends for the next 2 years, it's like 100% Gravy Bones because its numbers are insane. The deck is great. It hasn't been figured out and it looks adaptable to a bunch of metas. It just got released, so it can't LL on you. It's like, dude, if you just become an expert at this deck, you're probably set for 2 years.
I think it depends on how you define set. I think that investing into Gravy Bones now is probably going to have a similar amount of rewards to what I would have said for investing in like Enigma. If you look back on that, obviously he'll have more time, right? Like the LL system just means that he will have more time. But I mean, in terms of what I would expect the strength of the hero to be from the perspective of like, you can play him at, I think for most majors that you will play, if you're just like head down Gravy Bones Forcer until he LLs, he will be a good choice for most events. He will be a bad choice for probably some number of events, and he will be the best choice for probably some number of events as well. I think for most events for his lifetime, he will just be one of the good choices. So if you want to do that, I think it's probably a reasonable decision. But I think if you are somebody who's like, okay, I want to be one of the best players, I'm going to try and play the best choice and the best deck for each event. Don't just like only play Gravy. Like it's a great deck to have in your back pocket. He will probably, almost certainly, he will be the best choice for some event you play in your life. So knowing how to play him is great, but I don't think we've been seeing one of the best choices for every event moving forward. Like I just don't think that.
I think we've been seeing more and more often that like specialists continually keep getting rewarded, especially in metas where you don't think that they should be as strong as they are. I look at things like players who have been mainlining Kasai, and while I still don't think Kasai is that good, they're just like able to do stuff in a meta that like, because they know the ins and outs of the deck. And Gravy has even like a higher skill level than that. And will continue to have that. So like the difference between someone who's put a year into Gravy into a medium meta versus someone who hasn't is like, they're going to make the deck probably look really good. And we've seen things like that. And I would put Verdance in the same camp. I think if you all in on Verdance to be like, I want to be the expert Verdance player, I think you're going to get some really great mileage out of that deck moving forward into a bunch of the next metas. And so like, I would also put that into a deck where if you just want to mainline something, Verdance is in that category for me as well. Of like, this is going to pay off for like probably the next year and a half.
Trust me, that's the plan. I think the only thing that I just want to clarify is that like I do think that there is downside to being a specialist. I will say recently in Flesh and Blood, I've been coming to the conclusion, and I've been kind of coming around on the idea that just making sure that you have a list that is focused is maybe the most important thing for a tournament. And being a specialist means that you're basically always going to have a focus list. And what a focus list means is just something that's been built from the ground up with goals in mind for all of the matchups. Just something with a plan. Like, this is how I want the game to play out most of the time. And being a specialist is quite seamless for that. You're able to adapt the hero much easier than other people are able to, right? If you're not a specialist, even if you know how to play Gravy Bones, whenever you decide to play Gravy Bones for an event, you have to figure out if you want to play it, and then you have to figure out the meta, and then you have to figure out how to tailor the deck. Whereas if you're just a Gravy Bones specialist, you're just always already working on tailoring the deck. So there are pros and cons, as there have always been, and Gravy Bones probably is a much higher EV main than we've ever seen. But I just don't want everybody to think that you should just main Gravy Bones, because it's the secret strat to just win, be a competitive player for the next year and a half. But
I think Cody convinced me.
It might be a good it might be a good strategy. I just don't think it's the thing to be doing personally.
I think we're at a pretty pivotal point in how the game is going to function. I think a lot of people lost the decks that they were playing in this the beginning of the year. They're worried about some of the decks they have been playing, whether that's Florian or Azalea. I know Florian's definitely not rotating, but it did get scary there for people who were maining Florian for a while. And I think right now is a really good time to look at how they changed the LL system. And then we also have these decks that are incredibly versatile, have deep pools, and have the ability to be changed in different metas. And we lost some of the heroes that were overly oppressive to the entire game state. And I mean Enigma and Nu rotated out, which are really big to just hampering the ability to sit on some of these decks for a while. And since it's changed, it feels you should look at in my opinion, you should look a Verdance or a Gravy Bones or something else to just mainline a deck if that's something that you've been looking to do. And I think we have an opportunity where you can actually do that pretty confidently. And I haven't seen a path like this to be oh, you could just main this deck and probably be okay for a long time. It's been a while since I've seen this open.
I think Dromai was probably the last time you could do that. Dromai and Icelander.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Icelander after Prism rotated out, obviously. You could never have done that beforehand. Yeah. But the main oppressors of decks are gone.
Dromai also after Prism rotated out, I would say. That's.
And there are other decks you could do this with that to a lesser degree. And I'm not recommending you do this, but Acilio is another thought process of if you want to take a deck onto the main side where you want to work on in the downtime.
I think Syndra is a deck that could also just be good for a while. I think that there's no clear current reason why Syndra shouldn't be good, but I think Syndra probably more so than Gravy and Verdance is susceptible to future sets just making her not super relevant, but who knows?
But I think we're seeing that more with Mario or Fang or some of these other heroes that are they're going to be around for a while. The things that were making them completely dog unplayable have rotated out. Mm-hmm. And unless something like that comes back in, then it's kind of fine to be a specialist on these things. I don't think a lot of these decks are that great, but it is doable now.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily doable before. But I think you and I have just been talking to each other for too long. I would like to hear from Dan and Noah a little bit on any of these topics.
Yeah, I think Mario's a great choice to lock in for the rest of forever.
I just don't care about anything unless it's good. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but I just have no interest in playing a deck if I don't see myself winning the tournament I'm planning to enter with that deck.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to prepare for Singapore, so I'm going to spend the time between now and then playing a deck that I see myself actually winning that tournament with. So I don't see myself going okay, I'm going to be a Mario specialist, because I just don't see myself winning the tournament with anything but Verdant, Syndra, or Gravy at this point.
Sure, you say that, but you are a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the deeper so like when you get a deck that you like, that you play, that you have success with, the fact that you had success with it and that you know the deck so well seems to feed into itself to the fact that you'll take that deck again to the next tournament. Even when the deck is like, it's still good, as long as it's still good. So like, I think for most of the time, I think if you've played like 3 decks is what I think of. So like you like say you're not like a specialist, but you've kind of lived the specialist life for like the last year and a half and like take advantage of that.
I specialize in a deck until that deck becomes unplayable usually.
Yeah, he's like not a Florian specialist anymore.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like but it gets like a bump because you've had success with it already and you know the deck. So like if you just like was like, I'm going to play Verdance because I think it's the best for this tournament. Like your chances of then also playing Verdance again at the next tournament you go to is like infinitely higher as long as the deck's not trash.
They never change anything in FAB. We do a ban list once every 600 years. They ban like 1 card. We get new sets every 27,000.
So you're like a specialist who doesn't want to admit they're a specialist, but you just like become a specialist on the
No is like straight up not a specialist. Like a specialist is somebody who plays. A specialist is somebody who plays like Florian like right now. Like a specialist is somebody who's like playing Fang. Like a specialist is somebody who's like, I'm gonna play Mario now, and no matter what the meta looks like in 3 months, I'm gonna play Mario. But like this guy, like Noah legitimately like only plays the deck when it's just the best deck. Like he's a specialist.
I would push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
Just with your KO choice at
Yeah, but even a comfort pick is
he goes a little too far.
I think he's not a pure specialist, but he is a comfort pick. But his comfort picks are good.
That's just an EV choice, though. That's just because it's higher EV to play a deck that you've been like.
That's why I specialize.
So he's getting some of the bonuses of being a specialist because he's played it over multiple tournaments for a while, and so he has like the experience into multiple matchups. He's not necessarily just being like, "This is the best deck for this format." So I'm going to
play. He's not like Yuanji who sees like a note about Kano 12 hours before the event and slams it, right? It's very different.
No, but I think this is why Bad Noah didn't hold up a trophy and say I won first place. It's because like I keep playing these decks after I know that they're not good, and I should just like stop.
Yeah, he should stop
riding
he's so close. He's so close to maximizing his potential.
Do you ever play Jetpack? You ever play Jetpack Joyride, the old game on like the iPhone, where like you go and then you know how at the end when you die you like bounce for a while still and you like still get some of the coins. This is like me with those decks. Like I still play it when I'm bouncing. You know, I need to like once I like hit the laser and die, then I need to like okay, that's it. I don't need to do any more of this like dead cat bounce.
Fair.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, the screen pops up to like buy an extra life and switch decks, and Noah just like lets it go. Like he's just like, I'll keep bouncing. I'll just keep bouncing with Florian. It's fine.
Take my money. Give me my little bounce at the end. I need to stop bouncing.
But I think as long as the deck that you're playing is still like, I don't know, top 3 or whatever in the meta as playable decks, it's usually better just to play the deck.
Those just like most of the time. Those just like don't exist though. You just can never guarantee that decks are good enough to actually do that, because if you're a competitive player, when you're considering like a tier 4, like you're either going to just like get lucky and hope that deck is good, or you're just knowingly not playing one of the best decks. If that deck is going to be one of the top 3 decks, like if it's gonna be one of the best choices forever, you're not necessarily being a specialist if you just play it. Like I wasn't a Zen specialist. I just played Zen at every tournament because it's the best deck. Like, but I didn't like commit.
But we became a Zen specialist because we ended up playing it at every single tournament.
I didn't have to like commit to Zen. Like I just played Zen at all the events, and I still maximized the hero because I got lucky enough that it was top 3. But I could have.
And I'm not saying everyone should be specialists. I'm simply saying I've been hearing a lot of people who want to do this. They want to. Hey, I just want to pick a deck and play it because that's what they like to do.
What are we even arguing
this is like
about?
This is like one of the best opportunities to do that, and I think you can actually get paid off pretty well. I felt the same way with Zen though. Like I played Zen at so many tournaments. I was just like, I
think we're learning that we like want to specialize on a deck because it has so many benefits, but we'll always move off of it. Like every time we're going to be like, this deck's better for this event.
That's why like my point is that you should just play the best deck, and you should just potentially bias some of your decision making on which deck to play based on whether or not you've already played a hero. But like, you don't have to like become a special. Like, I don't have to be a Gravy specialist. I might still play Gravy at like every event for the rest of time. I just feel like it's higher EV to not be a specialist and then just be willing to play the same. Like, if I've played a bunch of Gravy, I'm gonna be more willing to play Gravy, but I don't have to like commit to being a Gravy.
I think it's entirely time and like resource dependent, though.
I agree. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Like, I'm just making points.
I think that's every week.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of just what we do.
I think Gravy's the best. To bring it back.
To circle it all back around, everyone specializes in Gravy,
my biggest
and
problem
we're
with
good to
some
go.
decks,
Surely it's
no, I have something. So I think like this is more just a general concept I have when I'm choosing a deck. What's so funny, boy? I haven't even gotten to my point yet. You're already laughing?
The way you said
that was a good lead in.
Because you said I actually have something. I was just
okay.
Because I totally was going to say just like some absolute nonsense. I was just going to say let's move on.
No. I have something interesting, I think. So like, It's a little bit hard to say this as a science. It's a little bit more of an art. Oh, you're doubting? I don't think you can run the numbers on this. I hope you can run the numbers on this. You're a college guy now, so like you're a certified genius by the
I
state.
can't run anything. I can't even run with my legs, much less numbers.
Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna like forget what I was gonna say with all this preamble. Decks have like certain failure states, right? So if you look at a failure state of Gravy, it's like I draw 4 allies, or like I draw 3 allies plus like a red card that doesn't help me convert my hand. Like that failure state is like basically game losing unless you were so far ahead of your opponent on most of the other turns. Whereas if you look at failure states of other decks, like for example, Verdance, a failure state could be like you drew 4 reds and all of them cost money to play, like the classic Earth Hero problem. Your hand still usually can block for like 8 and you can arsenal a card, or maybe you block 10 in the worst case scenario, but it's like you're losing probably like 2 to 3 points on the turn cycle compared to Gravy just like losing the game immediately. I think if you look at Syndra too, let me go more. I think Syndra too, typically like a bad turn is like, I don't have a starter, so I have to like pitch this red to dagger. It's like I lost like 2 points on the turn cycle. Similar like in math value to Verdance, right? So I think when you like look at decks that have the floor of like I bricked, I'm losing like 2 points below what a normal rate would be. Whereas Gravy's like, I just shake my opponent's hand. That's what makes it kind of hard for me to say that he's like the best. I think you can apply this to a lot of other decks too.
Gravy's like if Vincent was like the shit. Like,
yeah, it's another reason why I almost never play Azalea too. Like the failure state of Azalea is I have like 4 cards that actually do 0.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, it's very hard for me to like register decks for tournaments that have a failure state of like, I literally just lose the game.
To be fair, I think Gravy actually doesn't have as much of an issue with that as it seems. I think the issue with Gravy is actually slightly different. I think he has a bunch of small failure states throughout the game. I think his card filtering makes it to such that like most of the time it's fine if you draw all allies, and also with the nature of most of the reds that they're playing nowadays, like Conqueror and Tipple being the best examples, like they're actually just fine to draw with all allies. Like it's not great, but pitching 2 allies to play Conqueror is like an example.
It would be more like if you had like a saltwater swell or a sloop or even Tipple when you don't draw into a blue, so you can't actually play the allies, right? That's where it's like bad.
There definitely are some spots. I think in practice, most of the time, what actually ends up happening is that Gravy just makes a million -2 or 3 value plays throughout the game. Like he just oozes value every turn of the game. He's just like losing value willy-nilly because his cards aren't like super easy to use, and then he just like gains it all back because a bunch of his turns are utterly ridiculous. And I think it actually manifests a lot of the time in the same way as what you're talking about, where like he does just have failure states that just lose a bunch of value, and it just happens a lot. I don't think it's quite in the same way as like something like Azalea, but I do think it's still an issue he has where he just loses a lot of value throughout the game based on basically factors that you can't control. Because like every time where you just draw an extra ally, it's just kind of like okay, there's like value that I'm losing.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. In the current state of how we
Yeah,
understand the deck
my
functions.
overall point with this whole monologue was just that, like, I think decks that have these problems, like Dio is another deck that you could say like has a problem like this too. I just think it's really hard for these decks to be like the best deck.
Mhm.
Similar with like Kano too. Like why they can all be like very good, like strong picks for a tournament, but I can almost never say that they are just like undisputed king best deck.
Mhm. Yeah.
You just gotta accept the variance and live in that world sometimes.
That's what you do.
Yeah, you can do that. I'm just, sharing personal anecdote of where I usually choose not to, and that's because I view that. I don't know. I always want to exit a tournament being like, I came with a list that I think was good. My meta call was like plus minus okay, and I did poorly because of bad decisions I made in game. Because I like at least hope that I can improve those. I just hate losing because it's like I entered a tournament with a deck that has the variance that could lose me the game outside of my control. I want to at least have the illusion that it was my fault.
Sure. I accept. I also do the same thing quite often. So like I can't
Yeah.
I don't play those decks either. So
Yeah.
I've just been working on maybe being more open to playing those decks because I think that's where you get some competitive edge. If you're just willing to accept that you might lose some of your games at a pro tour outside of your control, but then you'll just win a bunch because you're accepting that line is possible. So cool. Anything else on this before we go to podcast questions?
I would say that actually probably is the optimal thing. I know you're shaking your head. Just one last point. That is probably the optimal play if you're someone like me or Lucas who's like fortunate enough to go to basically every single event. Like we should probably play the deck that has the higher variance because whatever, just try again at the next event. But if you're someone who like plays one big event per year, then probably don't do that strategy.
Yeah, especially after watching like the Magic Pro Tour where like every game for the most part is decided on variance. I was like, surely we should be slamming the like higher upside decks.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
no one else should be, but we might.
Well,
we
you
might.
think that? I don't know.
Maybe we should.
I feel like my current strategy of just play the best choice and play the event has been going pretty well. I do well at most of the events. Sometimes you need to get lucky. I feel like you actually end up getting lucky with the kind of low variance decks a lot of the time anyway. Like, I don't know, at least from my perspective, like playing against Dio and then hitting the bad side of variance is like the same as just playing Dio and like getting lucky. Like I'd rather just play the Verdance deck, play to be better and have better game plans, and then sometimes you get lucky. Like that, you need to get lucky anyway. Like whatever.
Your Verdance brain.
Well, to be fair, you also like
I'm
your
so Verdance brained. I'm so in.
I think your Verdance strategy often just has like points of luck that occur naturally throughout the game, right? Like you mental block, you play 3 mental block. You want to mental block into a good card, accepting the fact that it could just be a 2 block that all it ever does is block 2, right? Same thing with like the specialization, not specialization, but the yellow card, whatever it's called, rampant growth. You're just like accepting that this could be cracked bobble or it could be cracked beyond belief.
I think the biggest thing is that actually all decks in Flesh and Blood are actually just like super high variance, and everything that happens is super high variance, and people just complain about the wrong things. Like people don't complain about the right things in Flesh and Blood. Like people don't complain about the like their actual like 1 in a million bad luck stuff. People always complain about the dumbest stuff. Like they complain that their opponent like sunk into a blue, some shit like that. Like you guys gotta up your bad beats.
Yeah,
it's just a message to the community.
Yeah. Should people report back to you with more bad beats, and you can evaluate them on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, if you have like a statistically like actually impressive bad beat, I'll listen. But if your bad beat is like statistically probable, I just my ears.
You want sub 5%. That's it. If it's not sub 5%, then you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, like why are we even complaining, bro? It's a card game.
Agree.
Okay.
Maybe this could be a new segment. We can feature like the worst bad beat.
Bad beat. And Lucas can rate it.
Reviews. Like it's like a news segment. Like I come
a bad beat.
Yeah.
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 Ooh, okay. Next is podcast questions. These are asked by premium members of our Metafy community. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, find people to practice with, ask us questions, and a slew of other benefits, feel free to join in the link below. Also, if you want to pick up the Verdance deck that Lucas has been Verdance pilled on, it is also available on our Metafy as well. First question here from Rosebud asks, how do you best take advantage of the off season? I am not going to Singapore. Well,
Cody
you lock in
has
one of those
some advice
decks
for you.
you lock in one of those decks that we were just talking about, or all of them, and you just play them a lot so that you become. I would spend. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to Singapore, so what I'm going to do is spend all of my time playing Verdant and Gravy Bones for the most, so everyone's aware. Like that's all I'm going to be doing, probably until my next tournament.
I think the best thing is to get some experience on all the top meta decks. That way, regardless of what deck you choose, you know better how to play against them.
Yeah,
I would personally start there, and then try and focus in on decks you think will be relevant and live for the next meta.
If you want the actual answer, like the best answer is, you should do everything you possibly can to invest in yourself as a Flesh and Blood player, and just ignore everything about the meta, ignore everything about what's going on right now. Literally nobody cares. You're not going to Singapore. It doesn't matter if you know the meta right now. You should be improving your gameplay through whatever you find to be the most efficient means. Like, you should be, whether for you that's coaching, reviewing your own games, getting reps. I do think that getting reps with top decks is a good way to do this. And there are other things that you can be doing as you improve, but you should be focusing, like your goal during the off season is get better at Flesh and Blood. That is so much better of an investment than get good at Gravy Bones or get good at Verdance, or maybe getting good at Verdance is obviously the best investment you could possibly make.
Nice.
But with that sole exception, like seriously, just actually, this is something that everybody should just be doing always, not even just during the off season. Like, even if you have a pro tour, it's probably higher EV to just focus on improvement as a player, rather than focusing on a specific event, because in the long run, that's just going to be so much better for you. But we've gone over the concrete ways to do that a million times. But that's my biggest piece of advice, is that no matter what you do, make sure that that's your goal. It's not just like, being a better main on something.
I still think learning.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. I was going to reinforce. I still think learning the decks you don't currently know how to play is the best way to do this. Like, people are giving up so many edges against decks like Kano just from not ever playing Kano and not understanding, like, you can just IP a card every turn. That is totally fine and probably wins the game.
Yep.
And anytime you don't do that, you're taking your like 90%er and making it into like a 40%er for no reason.
One thing that I like to do as well in the off season, I don't think I've mentioned this before, is just like review the card pool. Everybody gets on my ass about having 10 billion cards in the maybe board. But like, if you review the card pool that certain heroes possess, and they're cards that maybe aren't seeing any play right now. So like, if you just looked at the deck list on the FAB, main TCG website, you may not know that certain cards exist for heroes that you don't play. So just like refreshing your knowledge of general card pool, I think is like pretty good in the off season. So you don't have to focus on like meta and what meta deck lists look like necessarily, but just like understanding what because eventually you're going to play another tournament. You now have this bonus knowledge of what new decks could look like for that tournament, that maybe someone who's just been focused on specifically one meta for one tournament always has they're lacking that knowledge.
TCG Ted asks, have national results and or more testing changed the thoughts on the position of the Gravy deck in the top of the meta from last week? I think we're mixed. We're mixed on the feeling.
It's definitely scary to play Gravy now.
Play as or play against?
Play as. Like with how the meta has adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, also scary to play against Gravy, because you never know what kind of crazy turns they're capable of.
Tweedle asks, do you think Acilio is a real contender in the upcoming meta, or is it still too unstable inherently to make for a good tournament deck?
Why not both?
Friend.
Why I don't see why both of those things can't be true.
It's high risk, high reward.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on this earlier, right? We being me, that like you you can play this kind of deck where it has the failure state of just like 4-card do nothing, but I think Acilio has a little bit of an advantage where he gets to cycle 2 additional cards for free, essentially, when typically those failure state hands are the ones that are just, for instance, that are just like, a bunch of discharges and somersaults and presses.
Definitely the most problematic are those. Right, like all the other bricks are just like you just block with them or whatever.
Yeah, the other bricks are usually just like
right?
3 blocks. Yeah, exactly. Like all those hands can be improved greatly by just hitting that one specific piece. So just like clicking the Acilio button to cycle, I think is like a skill that can bail you out of a lot of those brick hands. So I think, it definitely plays into that like positive variance aspect that we said is characteristic of some good decks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like it's definitely a good choice. I mean, I said this like back when Viscera hit LL that it's like the deck most similar to that, and I still maintain that that's like kind of true, that you have those like super high roll hands as well as like stability to play some small hands well. Also, so yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah. Also, it's definitely good in a tournament where you have to draft as well, because you take some of the pressure off of having to win so many games. But also, it's just like people underestimate how scary it is to be at like a Nationals or a Pro Tour and sit down across from like an Acilio. It's just like, it's just like, you're probably going to win this game most of the time, but like, it is so scary because like I have no control. I know it's not for me. They've definitely played this matchup more times than I've played this matchup, which is like annoying. And so like, it's scary, but that is a real advantage you get, is everyone is scared of you when they sit across from you.
Yep. Yeah, every time you throw like an Arsenal disruption at them, you're just like, please let it be gone in a flash one time. Yeah. Have it not be just channeling Valor, they fly out or something,
Yeah. Mangover asks, can Gravy solve the Syndra matchup? I do not think solve, but can definitely make it winnable. Like winnable in like a decent amount of time. Like not like 20%. I think it could be way better than that.
My hot take is that I actually just think it's a matchup. I just think it's like close. But
I think it can be, yeah.
That's my expectation for the matchup, is that it's just close.
I think it's a little bit hard because of the fact that certain allies matter so much more. That, and also it matters a lot what Syndra draws off of Mask, that there's like a lot of turn cycle variance that will happen. So I think like any matchup that goes as quick as that matchup is predicted to go will always be like very volatile and hard to ever say you have solved if it's like a 5-6 turn game at most.
Yeah. I will say more D-reacts help that matchup quite a lot, but most people are not willing to put the more D-reacts in. But like, if you just want to try and beat Syndra, like being able to resolve like a D-react after they've used a bunch of things to clear 2 allies and then still play the game afterwards is like pretty strong as far as the trade function goes. Jacob asks, how do you approach learning a totally new constructed format? I've played almost no LL, and I am looking to get started preparing for that format for Worlds. Ooh, LL is a tough one.
Yeah, LL's going to be a mess
to break into. Well,
I don't know what you do.
Don't play Chain. That's what you don't do. In the current
I think some of these questions we got to get like community feedback, because I also want to know the answer. So like, I'm leaning on y'all three. Please tell me how do I prepare for LL, bro? I don't know.
Yeah, I think one relatively simple way, if you are literally just like starting from the ground up, is to just, from the perspective of somebody also potentially trying to break the format, you should just look at all the things that aren't legal in CC and have never been like able to flourish. So for example, like Dromai with Dragon Scalar Flight Path, or like Icelander in the current scape of things with 3 hypothermias, or like Dash.io with High Octane and whatever other new stuff they have, because there's like a bunch of gold stuff. Maybe you can do stuff with that. So things like that. And then other than that, you just look at the other established LL decks that have existed in past metas. So like, obviously Starvo is not the same, but it's Starvo. You can look at lists and you can kind of try and figure things out from there. And then otherwise, I would look at heroes that have existed in CC and builds. You can take, examples from CC, but I would my like biggest advice would just be get wild, get wacky. Because LL is legitimately just like a lawless playground right now. You could do whatever you want. There's so much broken stuff. But I also think there's just a lot of things that fundamentally are unexplored. So I would just kind of get wild if I was testing LL right now.
I mean, I think testing LL right now is a really good idea because it's going to take a very long time
Yeah.
if you're trying to actually.
Do you
Get a
actually
It's
good
think
tough
so?
because
spot
they
for
said
them,
they'll
though.
balance it.
I think it's like a
Balance it.
terrible time to test it.
Yeah.
Because like we're gonna have
I
this
think if-
season that contains LL. There's gonna be a new set. There'll probably be like 2 more ban lists. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's you should understand what decks do generally, but actually like hardcore testing, I think is not wise to start yet.
That's why I think that what you should be doing right now is getting wild. I think right now you should
Yeah.
just be like exploring LL. I wouldn't really worry about like having good matchups for everything. I would just be trying to figure out
Oh God, no.
what are all the
Yeah,
decks.
just figure out
No,
what's
no,
strong.
no.
What are
That's
the
not
good
what I'm
things?
saying. Yeah, I'm saying if you've never played LL before,
Yeah.
that probably means that like you haven't played Lexi before.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
That's so much to learn to just be able to be like, what is this deck like? Play the decks. Like, just have someone play Starvo and then play like the decks into it,
Mhm.
just to have some idea of what's going on. Like, that is a
Yeah.
good use of time.
That's
what I'm
a good use of
talking
time.
about.
Okay, I agree
Because
with
it's a lot of stuff. It's so much stuff you have to cover just to
think
like
the-
just to get on the page where you can start testing the meta. Like,
that. Yeah, true.
I agree. I think the best use of time though is just slam Kano.
Don't do that.
Why?
just
Then all your
don't
games will
even
be fake.
recognize the format as
It's a
existing.
bad idea. Don't
I
do
mean,
think
that.
so?
Kano is
That's a good
pretty
idea.
good, but
Don't do that.
Wait, why is that a bad idea?
Because you won't actually learn anything about how any other deck plays.
Yeah, you
Well,
like
you
you
don't
like
need to. You're playing Kano.
you gain like no knowledge.
Then
You're
you're
not
forcing
playing that
yourself
good.
to play Kano in the real tournament.
You're also just like not playing that good of a deck. Like Kano is like not clearly broken enough.
And what if they ban a Kano card?
Isn't
Then you
Kano like the best
literally wasted
performing
all your
LL
time.
deck in rated events?
Maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the strongest pick. Like
No, but it means he can win.
Yeah, he definitely can. But like,
But they could just ban cards from him, and then you
Yeah.
wasted all your time. You didn't learn anything.
we also just like don't know anything about the meta. Don't like this is like actually just the worst. Okay, I know it was like a throwaway comment, but like don't.
No, it's really
actually-
not. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of hopeless to try and like solve the LL format in time for Worlds.
I think it's like hopeless to
Or
just,
you need
like
to like find
force a bad deck. Like yeah, I guess you could lock in like Azalea for Singapore tomorrow, but like it's probably not a good idea.
I also don't think it's necessarily hopeless because we don't even know if we're playing CC at Worlds, right?
Yeah.
Like they haven't established what the format's going to be. What if it's 14 rounds of LL? You better figure out how to solve it, dude.
Sure. I guess.
I
I don't know. I just think working on a deck that doesn't care about opposing game plans is
It's not that you
a way to
shouldn't
save time
spend
for
any
the other
time-
formats.
It's not that you shouldn't spend any time on Kano, but it should be much less time than you spend like learning what real decks do.
Maybe.
Scary Super Cringe asks, Syndra real now?
Yes,
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good deck.
good meta.
Mhm.
Big Hungry asks, we
Wait,
know
wait,
the game.
Wait, one sec. Sorry. Big Hungry.
You have something to
wait a
say on
second.
this?
No. I think. Also, by the way, you did a phenomenal job. You read all these names, all these questions perfectly. But I was gonna say, I wonder if Scary Super Cringe didn't want to ask what time it was. Maybe they got because didn't we roast people for asking what time?
Oh
it is?
yeah, they
Now people
probably
are gonna say, "Is this deck real now?" 'Cause-
they wanted to know if
They
it was
don't have
Syndra
watches?
time, but yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are allowed to ask that.
Yeah, no, I
like it.
Just 'cause I'm tripping, it doesn't mean you can't-
It was just funny when there's like 3 in a row. Is
Yeah.
it this time? The
Yeah.
next person, is it this time?
Yeah.
Is it this time? Yes, it's all the times. All the times.
It's new
Uh,
time or it's not new time. It's Vernon's
It's not
time,
new
it's
time.
Syndra time, and it's gravy time. That's it.
There you
Yep.
go. The clock can have 12 hours, you know?
Yeah.
Big Hungry asks, we know the game is crazy expensive at the moment. However, what do you think is a reasonable cost for a top tier deck?
I thought 1,000 was reasonable. Like it was like what? The range was like 600 to 1,000, maybe 1,200 for the expensive decks, and now it's like 2.5x that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It's just, it's hard to be like a top deck should cost X because
Yeah.
it's like, why does it cost X? Like, is it cost X because it's all using the same mana base? Because like, if you had to rebuy the mana base for, magic every time you wanted to build a deck, then every deck is like infinite dollars. But like if you only have to buy the thing once and it's transferable, like that's pretty good. So like how the game used to work is like for the most part, you had like a $300 to $500 core cards that went into most decks. And then once you had bought that, then it was probably like anywhere from $100 to $800 to add on a deck to that. That's like kind of how it used to work, depending on what deck you were playing. But now it's just like every deck is infinite dollars.
Yeah.
I like the idea of if you have like a $500 core that you like buy into, then you can build a deck on top of that for 100 to 800. Like that feels reasonable.
Yeah, but we also had problems with that though, right? Like we didn't like when every deck played Tunic and every deck plays CNC and every deck plays E-Strike and Sync and all that stuff. Like,
sure,
it's not
yeah.
that.
It's just they just got to print more product, but you know, for the most part,
print product, ban every fable.
People want to buy
the price of decks.
Yeah, it gets a little ridiculous, and you're like, I need 3 fables to run this deck. Let's go. And then like every tournament, you're like, can you check my fables to make sure I'm legally allowed to play these? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I had to do that for Nats. I brought Prism. There's 2 fables in there.
Yeah, it's actually like such a meme. I think the amount of people who I play against that have proxy for fables is actually like more than have the real fable in their deck.
Yeah.
At like major events. Which is like a terrible look for the game too. It's just like, imagine you're on stream. It's like, all right, I pitched this card. Why is it like a cut up cracked bubble? You know, it's just like,
Michael Hamilton was winning like 3 events back to back with like cracked bubble hard to find all on stream.
Yeah, it just like looks terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that I think people are used to it, but
no, I'm saying it's like, it looks terrible. Like I want the stream to look good. I want like outside people watching to think the game looks good. So more reasons to ban fables. My checklist is getting so long at this
point. Dude, you know, Prism immediately dies in a fire if you just ban fables. It's so funny.
Throw her in the fire, dude. She's the light of soul. Light her on fire.
Cusco asks, thoughts on the Ira spoilers? Also, any hopes for the July 1st reveal?
Well, so the spoilers are currently like terrible because it's a mask that doesn't do anything in a class with 2 of like the best hats in the game, and then an arms that banishes your weapon under the assumption that cards that we haven't seen yet hit. So currently they don't do anything, but I think in theory both effects are quite powerful. We just like don't have any support for them yet. So if there's really powerful combo cards that combo with Whirling Mist Blossom, or if there's like cards that are synergized when you discard them, like Noah was saying before the pod, like a Ninja Beast Within or something like that. I could see the hat being good.
A fable? Another fable from
you probably play the blue, right? The blue, does Nasty Surprise work?
No, it's only
that definitely doesn't work.
And then the arms the arms is really powerful, but who knows how consistent.
How is the arm even powerful, bro? It's just +1.
No, it's
you read Grasp with the Archetype?
No, because you're playing Ninja, so it's like potentially pushing.
Have you read Shuko? Shuko's just that for free.
It's potentially pushing like Mask of Momentum triggers or other hit triggers.
By banishing your weapon, right?
By banishing your weapon.
Well, but you have to banish your weapon and then pray, Inshallah, I get it back. Like,
well, yes, in theory. In practice, though, what this card does is literally like push a ninja attack over the edge. So if first of all, this is like under a huge asterisk that like the Vengeance cards are like remotely playable. But if they are,
it's the CNC one.
Yeah, like at least the CNC one, right? The CNC one is good, but
this is like the Marlin coat, bro. It's like surely we have playable harpoons.
No, I agree, and that's why that's actually why I began by saying that these cards are currently unplayable. But it's like an objectively powerful effect to be able to lunging press cards with potentially on hits basically every time. Because the other thing is that it just replaces itself if you target something with Vengeance in its name. Like if you go like 1 into the Vengeance CNC for 7, and they like block 7, and then you just use this, you banish your weapon, you immediately get it back, then it's just like insane. Like it's very strong.
But what if they block 8?
They can block 8, but then you're obviously
you're just out your weapon, bro. You're cooked.
Well, then you just don't activate the arms.
But they block 8 in like a
literally an attack
because it's not.
Yeah, whatever. If they block 7 and then they like activate Crown Disease or some shit, like whatever, that looks stupid. But like it's fine. Like I have multiple other turns. I'm just saying how ridiculous it is. Like whatever. If my opponent discards Shelter for like 1 value,
it would be like Flexors is probably like the
like there are blowouts that exist, but it's like there's not that many. Like it seems pretty strong to me. Like repeatable lunging press on the arms is absurd. Like when in a hero that's all hit triggers, it's quite unreasonable. The question obviously is just like, if this a reasonable amount of the time just like loses your weapon and you can't get it back, obviously that's really stupid. But like if this is a thing that's like 2 to 3 times throughout the game, this pushes a hit trigger that's worth like a full card, whether that's through like a mask draw or like a CNC style effect, and then it blocks 2. That's like so much better than like stupid Shuko. Like, come on. Like Shuko, yeah, you get 1 value, but your 1 value isn't just lunging press whenever you want it. Like this card is objectively super broken if it ever actually does like its potential. Like it's a very strong effect. It's just, who fucking knows? Like we haven't seen any of the cards yet. You have to play Edge of Autumn. What are we talking about?
But this is my issue. Like these cards give me major Max Armory deck vibes where they're asking you to put strictly unplayable cards in your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just not
Meanwhile, you could just flick daggers instead, and then buy your daggers back,
and you get
as a strategy that's already probably better than what this is trying to do.
It's also like super max vibes because it's giving you like really strong equipment that make you think that the cards are going to be good, and then none of the although to be fair, the one card that we've seen so far is good, and also I would say that Ira is. If they're going to make any armory deck that's like legitimately like quite strong, I could see it being this one, as like they release Ira as the kind of not Aurora replacement necessarily, but kind of in that position where it's like a beginner friendly thing that's designed to go like, okay, you get to play the Ira armory deck, then you can play her in CC, you kind of get a feel for her, maybe you can play her in Project Blue. And then I could see that like the Edge of Autumn stuff is actually good. Because the other thing is that Edge of Autumn's not as much worse than Kadachi's as we say it is.
It's infinitely worse.
If you're
because of dual threat.
Yeah, so I think dual threat is a big deal. But what I'm saying is that I think it's just 2 different decks. Like you can play Kadachi and flick knives and dual threat and do the aggro thing. If you want to do more of the just like use Ira's hero ability to go 1 into 7 with powerful on hits. Maybe you have some Whirling Mist Blossom combo turns. You play how she kind of has historically played in Blitz. That would also explain why you're potentially having a different hat other than Mask Momentum. Like if all of your turns are just like 1 into 7 and then sometimes I go 3 or 4 wide, it probably does make
this just sounds like Max to me.
Yeah, it's probably just bad.
I'm sure it's a good product that's fun to play, but I think it's set up to fail.
I think that there's less fundamental weakness than we think. Because like the second Kadachi is solely like a game plan thing. Like if you're just not really playing cards where the cost curves make sense to swing 2 Kadachis, it's not a big of a deal. You also get access to better blues potentially because you don't have to play 0 costs, right? Like something like Flying Kick, which maybe is harder to resolve without 2 Kadachis, but like you do have things going on for you.
But Edge of Autumn is also a sword, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you lose like every dagger pump.
Yeah, no,
you
that's
lose retrieve, you lose pumps.
Yeah, if you're all the flick knives, all the dagger synergy stuff is just a whole nother deck. You just can't. You
lose your cut throughs. You lose all of your efficient damage.
Yeah, you lose like all you lose pain in the back
and your power cards.
Yeah, I think you lose all of what's good about Ira currently. I agree, but the thing is,
again, Max.
But the thing is, though, it's different than Max though, because Max is this hero that's just like terrible with terrible cards, and Ira is just this like hero with a solid hero ability and some good cards, and she's just like cobbling together the card pool she has to abuse a few interactions. But really, what it is she's just a good numbers ninja with a pretty good hero ability that fits any sort of shell that is like value-based ninja that doesn't want to do combo cards. So that actually like there's nothing tying Ira to flick knives. That's just the best thing that Ira as a hero can do right now. But if we get a bunch of new cards, like all the flick knives cards are just an engine that was created in the most recent set. Like we didn't have cut through and upsticks and all that stuff before the set. We didn't have vest. So like, yeah, that was just a new thing that they made. They could absolutely just make new Edge of Autumn stuff. Like, yeah, whatever. They make 3 Vengeance head jabs that are replacements for those cards. They make 3 new 2-for-6s that are good, and then they make new equipment.
There's absolutely no precedence for this.
More good cards.
Well, that's why I was saying earlier that although there's no precedence for it, this is like a spot where it makes sense for them to do it because it's Ira.
Sure.
That's fair.
Like I do think there's potential.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
the
agree.
hat's
It's very
repeatable, right? The
possible
hat
it's just
doesn't
not.
destroy when you
Like
use it.
it totally
That's
could just be
that's
max.
true.
Like
Yeah.
it could just be max where it's all bad. But we have objectively powerful equipment in a hero that has the potential to have like a real.
You know how Ninja gets all those random like items and auras, like the Shuriken. They just got that new card, like Preach Modesty. Maybe there'll be some kind of crazy like board state ninja piece that they'll give. That'll be like the like clamp press from Max. How they give you a wrench thing. Maybe it's like you get your Edge of Autumn swings for 2 or 3 or something. You know, that would actually make like a little bit more sense.
I could legitimately see there being an equipment that makes Edge of Autumn less unreasonable. Like if there's a chest that's like, if it's your second chain link or higher, Edge of Autumn costs 1 less.
Yeah, or you get to swing it a second time or something.
Yeah.
You may equip 2 Edge of Autumns.
No, I don't think they'll make anything like that. But I can definitely see them letting you like swing it for free or swing it again, something like that.
I could see like a leg tap head jab line that's just like 0 for 3, 1 for 4. When this attacks, if Edge of Autumn was the last attack this combat chain, you may attack with Edge of Autumn an additional time.
Yeah.
The cost of playing these cards is just so high. Like giving a vest makes me not want to play Ira at all.
It's going back to our old question. The cost will actually be very low because it's an armory deck. So maybe that's some value.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
Well, with that, I think we're gonna get out of here. So goodbye, everybody. Enjoy your Ira max deck.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.